And joining me now is Christopher Bedford, senior editor at the Federalist. Chris, welcome back. Great to see you as always. As we just heard from Eric Rosales, there is infighting among Democrats when it comes to Israel's Iron Dome. But of course, that's not the only thing. Can you talk to us about how these divisions are impacting the Democrat Party and the Biden administration's ability to implement its agenda?
It's been interesting to see this fighting going on with the Democrats. It's something that we've associated over the last decade or so much more with the Republican Party having a conservative wing fighting against maybe a more moderate or more liberal wing of the GOP. Here we have something different actually going on, where you've got a hard left wing of the Democratic Party, which are causing some confusion. But generally, so far, both Speaker Pelosi and President Joe Biden have been on their side, almost as if John Boehner and Donald Trump were on the side of the Freedom Caucus. Now, that doesn't extend to every single one of these issues. For example, an Iron Dome, which has generally been a bipartisan thing, it's a completely defensive weapon. That's some place where they're having a lot of disagreements, a lot more fighting going on. It seems like somebody maybe should explain to the members of the squad and their allies that Iron Dome is a defensive weapon and not an offensive weapon. And I'm totally open to any member of the United States Congress or the Senate saying, why are we sending $1 billion or more to any other country outside the United States with our deficit problems? That's an open debate to have. The problem that we're seeing right here is a lot of these members have actually said openly anti-Semitic things. So if there's anyone to be a messenger on these kind of questions, it really isn't them. They're not considered in good faith.
Yeah, Chris, I want to turn to something else right now, to the governor's race in Virginia. And it seems one of the big issues shaping that race is education. Let's talk more about that and how that's factoring into what's become a very close race there.
The last few weeks have been it's almost as if the Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin had written everything that Terry McAuliffe, his opponent, had been saying. Whether he was shutting down a black anchor who was telling him that she was asking him questions about critical race theory in schools, and he was lecturing her on what that was, or whether it was during the debate when Terry McAuliffe said parents shouldn't be telling children teachers how to teach their children. They don't have any right or any place to do that. To say those things out loud is pretty surprising. You've seen some real pullback from Terry McAuliffe from some of his more extreme positions over that. For example, this week, he purged his website of all of its pro-abortion, extremely pro-abortion language, replaced it with some mealy-mouthed slogans about standing with women. These show you that those numbers are very close. But Virginia is a complicated place to watch. Whenever we think the race is going to be close, Republicans get blown out. And whenever we think the Republicans are being blown out, the race ends up very, very close.
Yeah, and I'm going to stay with Virginia here and education. A story that's really getting a lot of attention right now is about a Loudoun County father who attended a school board meeting a few months ago in which he ended up in handcuffs. Now, many of us saw those images, but it turns out that there was much more to that story. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
That's an extremely sad story, and this is something that is completely nonpartisan issue. What parents are upset about what's going on in their schools. In this case, it was a young man who identifies as a woman raping viciously, allegedly raping this man's daughter in a bathroom. Because of that, this was during the transgender bathroom fights, the school just quietly transferred that student to another school where another sexual assault against a young woman in the bathroom took place, or at least allegedly. These things were hidden from parents. This father was arrested. And when parents were finally able to even say their piece, they had to go in one at a time and speak to a largely empty room. They were claiming it was for COVID, but really they were trying to hold what should be a public meeting as privately as possible. The school boards in these counties are not connected with the parents, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. It's dangerous. It's awful. And the Loudoun County parents, which is where this happened, are right to be calling for the firing of the superintendent and the resignation of the school board.
Yeah, it's a really disturbing story. Before we let you go, we have about a minute left. Something I also want to talk about. Our partners at the Catholic News Agency reported on this. A church in Denver, Colorado had been vandalized. And I know you've been following that issue very closely and this uptick in such events. Let's talk a little bit more about that. And do you think the situation is getting worse, Chris?
Yes, it's gotten worse. The number of attacks on churches over the last 5 years have gone from a few with maybe goths or punk rockers or wannabe Satanists to extremely rampant. The evil that has been unleashed in this country and that is being even promoted in the halls of power, the attacks on Christianity, as if that's completely normal and completely okay to do, are seen every day. And with that, we've seen not just the kind of normal vandalism, maybe high schoolers spraying a fire extinguisher so they don't have to go to school, but satanic attacks, attacks on Christ, attacks on the host, attacks on statues of Queen Mary. It's been very sad and traumatic for Christians who are already at risk of losing their jobs for standing by their beliefs to not even have a sanctuary in their own churches.
Yeah, it really is heartbreaking. Chris, thank you so much for coming on. I always appreciate your time. Christopher Bedford, senior editor at The Federalist. Thanks again.